Years ago, before AIDS turned up, pretty much everyone used to share fits. When AIDS came in, we all learnt to stop sharing fits, or at least to bleach.
Out of every injecting drug users, less than 2 wound up with HIV, compared to more
than half in places like America, where fits can be a bit harder to come by.
But when we stopped panicking about the Grim Reaper for 5 seconds, it started to look like HIV wasn't the only problem around.
The thing that's become an even bigger hassle for injecting drug users is hepatitis C and hepatitis B. Hep B you can get a vaccination for and never really have to worry about again, but Hep C is another thing. Like HIV, there's no vaccination.
The things that make you safe for HIV don't quite cut it for Hep C. We all learnt that the hard way, because nearly everyone's avoided HIV, but a hell of a lot of people are still getting Hep C. More than half of Australia's injecting drug users have Hep C.
So what's the big deal? How bad is Hep C anyway?
Well, it isn't HIV. You're probably not going to die from it. You're more likely to die with it than of it. But it is a pain.
The main symptoms would be fatigue, and I get there's some fatty foods that I can't eat.
One of the problems I find having Hep C over the years is energy levels. Losing weight, I guess, from feeling quite strong and energetic, and it's having to sort of come to terms with not being so strong and energetic, and maybe not being able to ride for hours on end every sort of other day, or run and maybe not swim as far, and all those sort of things.
So how do you get it?
Well, like we said, it's easier to get than HIV. It survives in microscopic amounts of blood. Any time you touch somewhere with blood, even if there's too little to actually see, you transfer it to wherever you touch next.
Look at these two. They're doing the right thing and using separate pigs, but she's now transferred tiny amounts of blood to that swab packet while he's injecting.
And here, while he cleans up, he touches the same swab packet, getting microscopic amounts of her blood onto his fingers. If he touches any open scratch or injection site before the next time he scrubs his hands, her blood could enter his bloodstream.
And if she has Hep C, he could now have it. But these two guys both got tested recently, and both of them came back negative. You'd think they wouldn't have to worry about catching stuff off each other.
Unfortunately, testing is only really a way to look back into the past. Testing tells you where you were at 3 or 4 months ago, but not where you're at right now.
For these guys, it's been a pretty busy 3 months. Her sister came and visited from out of town. Her sister usually uses with 2 friends back home, and while she was visiting, she used with these guys a couple of times as well.
Now here's the problem. If one of her friends back home has Hep C, she could have it. And if she's got it, we've seen how easy it would have been for one or both of these guys to get it, and pass it on to the other one. These guys haven't even met this guy, let alone used with him, and they've definitely never shared fits with him, but they still might have managed to get Hep C from him.
Okay, so this all sounds a bit grim, but it's like back when AIDS first turned up. At first people thought there was nothing much they could do about it. And a few nutters even seemed happy that all you junkie scum are gonna die. But all it really took was a few changes in how people usually did things when they injected to stop them from ever getting AIDS. Hep C is the same. If you can follow a couple of basic rules, you're a lot less likely to get it and a lot less likely to pass it on.
The first rule is, once anyone starts injecting, you can't touch stuff anyone else has touched until your injection site has sealed up, at least a couple of minutes after all bleeding has stopped. Watch these guys. They're doing a rush job in a toilet, but they're still doing everything right. They've set up all their kit first and have decided who's going to be the one to hang on to the disposal bottle. Once she starts injecting, neither of them touch anything the other one has touched again.
The second rule is, wash your hands. If you've got no water, use swabs. Hell, do both, it can't hurt. Swab or wash your hands and fingers before you use if you can, but definitely swab or wash again afterwards. Swabbing or washing your hands and fingers afterwards means if you slipped up and touched the wrong thing, the virus now has a much harder time surviving long enough to get into your blood. Swabs can be your best friend, and they're free. Grab some more every time you get fits, even if you don't think you need them right away.
So this stuff about not touching is all very well and good, but what about when you usually inject someone else as well, or someone else usually injects you? Well, that's where the last rule comes in. If you're going to inject someone else, you have to do them first. You can't do yourself first and then do them.
This goes against what a lot of people normally do. It's pretty common for the more experienced person to go first and then do the other person. But this might be one of the ways so many people got Hep C. Think about it. Once you've done yourself, you've got an open injection site. Then you go and do someone else. You could be getting microscopic amounts of your blood over to them in the process. At the same time, you could be getting microscopic amounts of their blood onto your fingers. And you've already got that open injection site all ready and waiting for that blood to get into you. You could both catch Hep C off each other doing it this way.
But if you do the other person first, you don't have an injection site for their blood to get into you, and there's none of your blood around yet to get into them. Once you've done them, you can swab or wash your fingers and hands, getting rid of any of their blood you might have picked up. And then you're fine. You can do yourself, and it's much less likely that either of you got any of the other's blood. If you're the one who gets injected, think about learning to do yourself. It's safer for you, and it's also safer for the person who normally does it for you.
And that's about it. Every time you do this stuff, you make it less likely you'll ever get Hep C. Just the same as every time you use your own fit and don't share, you make it less likely you'll ever get HIV as well. Just remember, don't touch stuff other people have touched once anyone's started injecting. Wash or swab your hands afterwards, if not before as well. And if you have to inject someone else, do them first. Finally, despite what we said earlier, getting tested from time to time is still worth doing. It might not tell you much about where you're at right now, but if you did become positive a while back, the sooner you find out, the easier it is to limit the damage to your body.
Here's some places you can go and get tested. While you're there, ask them about getting a vaccination for Hep B. Once you're vaccinated, you won't have to do anything else to avoid that one. And the new vaccination process is fast, and in most places it's now free.
But whatever you do, don't touch anything once someone's started injecting. Wash or swab your hands afterwards. And if you're going to inject someone else, do them first.
Have fun!